women who get together with other women are healthier, happier, and stronger.
Now we can make some figure eights with our hips. Figure eight, figure eight, figure eight, figure eight. Woo!
By the time I met Mickey, I had already contemplated suicide and I was developing a plan. That's how dark my life had gotten.
Because I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me.
Hi there, and welcome to Prime Time for Women TV, the show for and about women in their prime. On Prime Time for Women, we thrive on celebrating women, especially those who have incredibly inspiring stories. It's not every day that I get to welcome a biracial farmer, a successful entrepreneur, a renowned author, and a community activist all at one time to our show. In the state of Maryland, where only 2.5% of the farmers are black and 12% are women, it's my pleasure to welcome Natasha Bowens Blair to today's program. Natasha is living out her passion on the farm she co-owns in Boonsboro, Maryland. She's the mother of 2 little girls, wife to a 5th grade teacher in Frederick County, and co-owner and operator of Native Mountain Farm, a place where fruit, medicinal herbs, and flowers grow wild. She's also an author and has spent the past decade highlighting the importance of farming, food, and storytelling in the communities of color. Her book, The Color of Food, Stories of Race, Resilience, and Farming, features stories and portraits of farmers and food activists from Black, Latina, Asian, and Native communities across the country. Stories that invite us to dig deep into race, culture, and equity. It's my pleasure to introduce Natasha Bowens Blair. Welcome, thanks for being on Prime Time for Women.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so glad you're here. So Natasha, one of my favorite things about hosting this show is the amazing women I get to meet, and I've never before had the privilege to meet someone who's been honored by the Smithsonian Institute. You were in the Museum of African American History and Culture. Can you tell us why you were honored and a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so sometimes it's still surreal for me.
I bet, that's quite an honor.
I got to go and visit the plaque that pulled a quote from my book there, featured. And yeah, so I wrote The Color of Food, as mentioned, and so I was honored to have a quote from the book pulled with my name there on a nice big plaque, and it's actually in the, so the cafeteria in the Smithsonian is very famous as well for just honoring African American food and culture. And so within the cafeteria, they've have portraits and different photos and different quotes from other folks who've really contributed to the history of African American food and culture here in the States, and so it's quite an honor. I still
and is your book sold at the Smithsonian as well?
You know what? That's a good question. Hopefully by now it is.
Oh, good.
At the time, it wasn't in there, and so my husband made a call about every day after we went and visited and said, "Make sure the book is in there."
Oh, that's so neat. So, just before we move on to our next question, where can people get the book?
Right now, you can purchase it on Amazon or at a local bookstore. Curious Iguana in Frederick, my hometown, also sells it, and then I will be selling more on my site as well. I used to back when I was traveling for the book and kind of took a break to have some babies.
Okay. I gather from my research that you're the first and foremost, you're a wife and mother, and then a farmer. That sounds like the priority.
Yes.
Could you please talk about the different aspects of how these parts of your life intersect?
Yeah, so, well, I wrote the book and started farming well before I had kids, but I think, the importance of where the food came from and what I was putting in my body. It was important to me at a time before becoming a mom, but as soon as I became a mom, it was just all the more important. My kids are a part of the farm with me. They come up to the farm at Thursdays. Today is usually our farm day, and they'll be up helping me pick blueberries or picking flowers or playing with Nana, who is
how old are your daughters
now? 4 and 2.5.
Oh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love the part on your website, especially the part about where you and Julie first became family and then became business partners. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess it's the love story that connects these generations, 3 generations?
Yeah, so Julie and her late husband, Billy, found the land back in the early 80s and decided they wanted to start their family there, and they built the house that is there now. And you know, they had my husband, Crosby, and his sister, and they ran around picking blueberries and climbing trees. And, you know, I met my husband. I was farming here in the area in Shepherdstown, and he was working for the same farmer. He's a teacher, but he was kind of doing a summer job. And we fell in love, and as soon as I stepped foot on the land, I just knew it was a special place. And we got married there under the black walnut tree, and now our kids run around climbing trees and picking blueberries.
That must be so fun. I bet that's just a thrill for your husband.
Yeah, and for Julie. I think she really gets misty-eyed when we're all there at Christmas time.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. So on your website, there's a quote that says, "We are a biracial family farm, proud to be stewarding the land and working to support our community with the joy of flowers and healing powers of plants." In your mission statement, you address race and the importance of organic farming. That's a lot of passion. What advice do you have to others who are looking to find fulfilling and meaningful work like you have found?
I think for me, I've just kind of followed that voice inside. You know, we might call it intuition, call it what you will. Maybe some religious folks might call it something else. But I think just really listening to that and following your passion. It's not always easy, right, to kind of leave the safety of your day-to-day to go after what you're really passionate about. But I did that from the beginning. My family thought I was crazy when I moved into a station wagon to drive around the country and interview these folks. But that's kind of the path I've always taken, and it's led me here.
And it's working for you.
Yeah.
Natasha is such an inspiration. There's so much more for us to learn from her. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read,
he put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
Are their patients. Meritus Medical Group, home to your extraordinary doctor.
The DVR, it's changed the way we watch TV. And now, Antietam Broadband takes you to the next level with TiVo. Find your favorites on cable or streaming video faster with voice-activated integrated search. Record up to 6 channels at once and watch from any TV in your home. TiVo from Antietam Broadband. It will change your life. Call today or visit AntietamBroadband.com to learn more.
Welcome back. Today we're here with Natasha Bowens Blair, who is sharing her story and passion for her work at Native Mountain Farm, which she describes as a female-owned, Black empowered business. I'm so glad that we're getting to finally talk. Natasha, before the commercial, we were talking about the farm being founded on and sustained by love. Not only that, you continue to empower love by providing flowers and for weddings and baby showers. Can your farm also be used as a wedding venue? Is it?
We hope to one day, but right now we're not set up for that. But we hope to be able to be a venue and also a workshop space. That's one way that a lot of people use our flowers is we have these sip and stem workshops where you can learn about floral arranging or dried flower arranging and wreath making.
While you're sipping wine, right?
While you're sipping wine.
Yeah,
we have one coming up at Big Cork this month.
That's great. And I just wanted to thank you for bringing those lovely flowers from your farm. They're beautiful. Thank you for bringing them to the set today. You currently commute from Frederick to your farm. From Frederick to Boonsboro. Yes. Before I ask you about that, how does it work for you to be at the farm and then have to go home and I guess get kids tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as women, we know we wear many hats and we just have to kind of seamlessly change in and out of them. So I wake up very early, about 5:30, drive the 25 minutes to the farm, harvest as quickly as I can or do whatever jobs I have to do on the farm. And then as soon as I'm walking in the door, it's mommy, pick up the kids, make breakfast, and then go about our day.
So, and at the farm, you're growing flowers, medicinal herbs, and
some fruit. We
and
have
some fruit.
elderberry, which we also use medicinally, and then blueberries, or the first berry on the farm, as well as figs, blackberries, raspberries.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your book, and maybe hold that up. Let me see that. Yeah.
So here's The Color of Food with some beautiful portraits on the front of some of the farmers that I interviewed. So this book contains portraits and stories from, well, I interviewed over 75 farmers of color around the country. And I was able to travel around, and I stayed with some of the farmers or stayed near them, and I would spend either a couple days or an entire day just sitting at their feet and soaking in their story and soaking in their knowledge and wisdom about farming, or about their family history on the land, and any obstacles or issues as a person of color in the agricultural industry that they'd experienced.
Which is still a pretty small percentage overall in our country.
100%.
What is it that you hope the readers, what's the most important takeaway? What do you hope readers take away from reading this book?
Well, I think, we think about farmers, or we see kind of the way farmers are spoken about or shown, and it's just, kind of the John Deere farmer on his tractor. And I think this book, the big takeaway is to know that that is not the only story in farming and in agriculture. We have old Native grandmothers that have been tilling this land for longer than we've all been here, and we have Black farmers that have been fighting to hold on to their land for decades and decades. And just to know that there are other stories right there in our seeds, in our food, and in this soil that we walk on.
Yeah, that's important. So when I think about Prime Time for Women, one of the things that we talk about is the power of the stories that we tell ourselves, how those stories shape us. I was wondering if you have a story either from your book that you would like to share, or something you tell yourself that enables you to share your passion. What is the story you tell yourself?
Well, I feel like the story that keeps me going, we all have those days where we wake up and we wonder if what we're doing is, we're working so hard, and what keeps us going, what keeps me going is definitely working with the plants and knowing that I belong there on the land. The minute that I dug my fingers into the soil, I felt a connection with something bigger than myself, not just with the earth and the plants, but I think with my ancestors. And just to know that as a woman who is growing plants and using them to heal and nourish myself and my family, and then sharing that with my community, that's a story that I think is very powerful for my daughters to pick up and learn, and for the rest of the community of women and folks of color who might feel like this isn't a place for them.
Might not even think of it as an option. It's providing space for people to say, I get to consider that.
Right, or maybe not everyone wants to be a farmer, but to know that when we're going and we're taking our medicine and we're eating our food, to really remember that we're connected with that.
That's great. And I was just going to ask, what do your girls say about the farm?
Oh, they love it. They say, Mommy,
Do they consider themselves little farmers?
Oh, 100%. They'll sit here and arrange in the jars with the flowers.
That's
and
great.
They'll pick the blueberries and eat the elderberries right off the bush. And
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to thank Natasha for being here and on Prime Time for Women. Your commitment to the land, your passion for justice and equality, and your desire to build community are so inspiring. If, like me, you are in awe of this powerful woman, then support her farm and remember to speak your truth. Together is how we can make a difference. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with our next guest.
14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read...
He put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
...are their patients. Meritus Medical Group. Home to your extraordinary doctor.
The DVR. It's changed the way we watch TV. And now, Antietam Broadband takes you to the next level with TiVo. Find your favorites on cable or streaming video faster with voice-activated integrated search. Record up to 6 channels at once and watch from any TV in your home. TiVo from Antietam Broadband. It will change your life. Call today or visit AntietamBroadband.com to learn more.
Our next guest enjoys doing puzzles. And all I have to say about that is it's a darn good thing. Kaye Robucci, as the director of Washington County's Board of Election, has to fit a myriad of pieces together to prepare and conduct all primary, general, and special elections held in Washington County. She oversees a staff that processes, evaluates, and reports election results, recruits and trains precinct election officials, and maintains the voter registration records. And that's just some of her many duties. Kaye, who earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Shippensburg University, first became involved with the elections in 1988 while serving as an election judge. She joined the Washington County Board of Election full-time in 1992 as an election registrar and worked her way up the career ladder. She became the deputy director in 1995 and was appointed election director in 2010. Kaye has witnessed many changes to the voting process and has worked hard to ensure the fair, impartial voting process demanded by our democracy. She joins us today to provide a little historical perspective and to discuss the challenges faced by our country as we conduct elections during the first ever pandemic. Welcome, Kaye. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So, Kaye, in 2003, you were designated as a certified election registrar administrator, which I did a little research is one of the highest professional achievements possible. This recognition, for me, instills tons of confidence in our local election process. What did it mean to you to receive that recognition?
Well, that was the first time that there really was a designation offered for election officials. And so the state of Maryland really worked to get the election center to provide and offer the required classes so we could begin taking them. And that was the summer of 2001, I think. They were in Annapolis, and quite a few election officials across the state were able to go, and it was fascinating because it's election officials from other states and ones who have gone overseas to other countries and helped with elections. And we did a lot of group interaction and just hearing how different states, some were already doing early voting, provisional voting, and just being able to learn and get some information from them was just so interesting and exciting.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you brought it all back to us, so that's great.
Yes, and it just helped. And now we have additional staff members starting to take the classes and working towards their certification.
That's neat. So you've been doing election work for 28 years. Over the course of that time, you've seen a lot of changes. Can you talk about maybe the one that was the most difficult to implement?
Besides this election?
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I guess that's what I was thinking.
Yes, we have seen a lot of changes, and I think one that really would have affected all the voters is probably when we went from our lever machine voting system that we'd had for 30 years.
Right,
and they were still using it when I came on board, and we went to a paper-based voting system with scanners to feed your ballot into, kind of like what we have now, but this was back in 1994.
Was that with the hanging chads?
No, we never had the butterfly ballots or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, we went from lever machines to, it was called the 3P Eagle.
Okay.
And it was a paper ballot system. And just trying to get that new way of voting across to the voters was interesting. What we had as far as media outlets at the time, before social media, and we really kind of just took it on the road.
So was there one change that really increased voter engagement and participation that you can look to?
I think that one to me is offering early voting.
Okay.
I love early voting. I just enjoy, and it's when you have an opportunity before Election Day to go vote. Washington County just has the one site, but 8 days. You can go, and so many people bring their parents, on the weekends when it's a little slower. And I just, it's so enjoyable to see people come out and participate with early voting.
And when did early voting start?
Early voting started in 2010.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of history with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, you can fill us in on what's going on today, some of our voting processes, and also our challenges and our successes.
Okay.
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
"14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read
He put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
are their patients. Meritus Medical Group, home to your extraordinary doctor.
Prior to the commercial, Kaye, Robucci, the director of Washington County Board of Education, was telling us about her work and some of the past implementations of different processes in the voting and changes during the voting law. Now she's going to tell us about some of the challenges that our officials are facing, both locally and nationally. Before we get to that, though, Kaye, you brought a document with you. I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about that today.
Sure. I found that when I was going through some things, our previous election director, a couple years back, Jean Calhoun, always kept newspaper clippings and everything. And I found that, and I thought we really should frame that. And it's from 1919.
1919.
It looks to me to be sample ballot information that they would have had in a newspaper. And what I like about it is 1919 was before women had the right to vote. And so, and since we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of that, I thought I'm going to bring that along to show Bernadette.
I'm so glad you did.
And it's interesting because it lists the polling places at the time that were used. I'm happy to say we're not still using any of those same places, but it's just a really neat piece of history that we will keep.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, you're welcome.
So, Kaye, I know you wouldn't be doing this work if you personally weren't really passionate about civic engagement and specifically about people's right, exercising their right to vote. So can you tell us what the election board does to encourage civic participation and voting?
The election board, of course, is getting the information out to the voters, letting them know the different deadlines that are coming up. We think the best way for people to really understand what's going on is if they would be an election worker. That's one of the jobs that we offer, and we use around 700 workers on election day during a normal election and provide training. But that is such a unique way to get to see what is going on in the election office, because a lot of times people think we only work twice a year, every other year. And we also offer voter registration volunteers, and they can come in and get training and then go out and do voter registration drives. And that has really been popular this year also. And that, again, helps others to see what is involved, what's required, and it helps us also because we just can't do it all ourselves.
Great.
And so we offer election judges and volunteer voter registration volunteers.
You spend a lot of time trying to educate the public about their right to vote and where to vote and all
yes,
that stuff
we do.
Too.
And it's been, yes, and we try to use different mediums to get that across.
And I was going to say that one of the things that has been a problem, depending on who you talk to, social media has either been a boon for some people say, oh, it's great because it allows candidates to talk directly to their people, their supporters, and other people say, no, social media is putting out inaccurate information. But the election board uses it to educate people.
Yes, educate and inform. It's a wonderful way to pass along such important information. And so I have several people in the office responsible for our website, which, if you're looking for the most current information, would be there. Deadlines, how to go about getting a mail-in ballot, and then also our Facebook. And so, yes, for us, it has been a wonderful way to get the information out.
So we're in the middle of this pandemic. Can you tell us how has that impacted the election process? I know recruiting judges has been difficult. Well, anything else?
Just the whole social distancing has become something we really have to think about as we are designing, laying out the polling places or the vote centers that we're going to have, and just keeping that in mind, along with not just protecting the voters, but also the election judges, my staff and board members, and the state has been really good about getting us PPE supplies, and so we will have that available for our workers, and masks for the voters if they need them.
So I know that in this day and age, because of the pandemic, and also to protect especially at-risk groups like the elderly, voting in person can present some problems. Mm-hmm. But there are some alternative ways that people can vote, and I would really want you to talk a little bit about those.
Yes, thank you. In this election, what is going to happen is the governor decided to have a vote-by-mail application request sent to everyone, so different from the primary. So by the end of August, all eligible voters should receive an application in the mail asking, do you want to request a vote by mail? Do you want the ballot sent right to you? And it's up to them whether they want to sign it and send it back. If they don't want to go to the polling places for whatever reason, I would certainly encourage them to go ahead and do that. Allow plenty of time, don't wait to the last minute, but also to know once they sign that application and send it back, we are going to mail a ballot to them.
If they get a ballot and don't use it, can they vote at the voting
Excellent
center?
question. Once we issue a ballot, okay, we've gotten the application back, now we're going to send a ballot. Once that is done and they show up on election day, they'll be allowed to vote, but it's going to be a provisional ballot.
Okay.
Because we just have to make sure that they hadn't already voted their original ballot and sent that back.
So there's so much more I want to ask you, but we're just running out of time. But real quickly, do you have confidence in the post office ability to handle the increased number of mail-in ballots?
I do. We've used the post office for years, and I understand this is a different type of election, but I do feel confident. We've never had an issue with them, in Washington County. I know some of the people there, and they're always very helpful. And again, we know this is a different year, a different election. I just would encourage people to allow enough time to return their application or their ballot, and then to also know, they could go to one of the vote centers on election day and also vote in person.
And I just want to make a clarification that a vote center is different than a polling place, because you can go to any vote center. You don't have to be in your precinct.
That is exactly right. We're going to have 11 places on November 3rd, and you can go to whichever one's most convenient, and you will be hearing that information from us as time goes on.
Well, Kaye, I thank you for being here, and I just want to tell our viewers that if you have more information, check out their website. It's a wealth of information. You can't go wrong. Also know that you can call them.
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for being here today on our program. Remember, voting is a privilege, but it's also an incredible responsibility. Kaye, probably more than most people, understands the importance of these words that were spoken by Louis Brandeis. He said, "The most important office, and the one which all of us can and should fill, is that of private citizen." I encourage all of you to flex your electoral muscles and be sure to cast your vote either by mail, early voting, or at the vote centers on election day. It doesn't matter how you vote, but it definitely matters if you vote. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Prime Time for Women.